It's honestly weird to see that after all these years we get a continuation of Zoey 101, a show that growing up I absolutely loved and even today I still hold on to some great nostalgic memories of. In more recent times, my enjoyment of the show is a lot more soured thanks to so many behind the scenes issues that make me less and less interested in going back to relive those memories. But now, after all these years, countless rumors, a small All That reunion, and even a random short released onto YouTube about what was on the tape in the time capsule that Zoey said about Chase, where 10 years later on the date of the original episode it was released, that somehow they messed up quite a bit of continuity with, we finally get to... oh wait, I forgot. We also had that whole thing back in 2020 where Jamie Lynn Spears pretended she was releasing something special, but it was really just a music video with some modern time influencers and some of the original cast members coming together to hang out in a warehouse, selling special packages to be a VIP and get some merch that upon seeing it, it totally wasn't legit and just meant to look similar to PCA merch, as well as a signed CD of the one song to which she signed my copy of it twice, and then be on a Zoom call with her where the majority of the time she's not talking about the reboot at all or anything to really do with Zoey 101 and instead talking about her personal life only to answer one question regarding the reboot that was left by yours truly.
Where do you see the characters in the reboot, as in where they are in life, post-college, having kids, going to PCA? For me, I think that that's the most fun part that we've had when we're creating this reboot, is figuring out where the characters are, where Zoey and Chase are, and we just recently kind of came up with the concept that we all love, and I think that it's going to be really interesting for all of you to figure out where all of us are. And I wanted to make sure that when we did this reboot that we did it for the fans who grew up watching Zoey. We want to grow with the characters and kind of make it make sense for where our fans are today and relate to their lives, but also we got to give them that, you know, that OG love stuff that happened with all of us.
Either way, now we finally get to the official continuation of Zoey 101, awfully named Zoey 102. I am really hoping there is some good explanation for this within the context of the movie, because just calling it 102 isn't that clever when the title 101 made a lot of sense in context to the show itself. And yes, you did hear me right, this is not a TV show or a small special, this is a full-on movie that picks back up with the characters now in their 20s, even though all of the returning cast members are in their 30s. Regardless, I am eager to see what is even happening here in this film, as when the trailer came out for it, it didn't look too particularly good, and a lot like something you'd find on the Hallmark or Lifetime channel. But you can't judge a book by its cover. You judge it by how far you read into the book before going, wait, why am I even reading this? So today, let's take a look at Zoey 102 and do a couple of things. One, take a look at the movie on its own merits, and two, of course, discuss how well it works as a sequel to the show as we follow the lives of these characters now as adults.
It'll be the reunion we all need.
The main premise of the film revolves around following Zoey in her adult life working as a producer on a reality show called Love Fully Charged, where she struggles to progress in her career and get recognition for ideas based on a work environment that doesn't give her respect, and as the only woman on the team, we see her struggles with all of the responsibilities that she has. After a stressful day at work leaving her feeling defeated, Quinn, who is now very successful, sends Zoey a new updated version of the phones in the show called a TechMate, with this being a weird see-through phone. Quinn then invites Zoey to her wedding where she and Logan are getting married and says yes to going. Zoey is pretty nervous about this though, as we find out how estranged she has kept herself from her friend group throughout the years, deep diving a bunch of her friends' socials to see how close they all have been and how successful they have all become in their own respective career fields. But Chase is the one she is worried about the most. He is going to be there, and it shows him being a school teacher, working across the states in Baltimore, Maryland, and the DMs over the years between them paint a picture of him not responding to her after an incident that happened in Hawaii that has kept them the most distant. But things now begin to get a bit crazy when Zoey is given a special task for work that requires her not to miss the live finale of the reality show, which happens to take place on the same day as Quinn and Logan's wedding. So she comes up with a new plan to somehow balance being there for her friends and celebrating the wedding, as well as all of her work responsibilities that she needs to do in hopes that she can finally be given the respect and positions that she knows she deserves. To make things worse, Chase is bringing his girlfriend friend to the wedding, trapping Zoey in a lie of saying that she's bringing her boyfriend as well, having to hire someone to play her boyfriend for the whole event. But do lingering feelings of love still break through the veil? Or were Zoey and Chase never meant to be soulmates in the first place? Sorry, I had to add a little bit of spice to saying that, making it feel a little bit more dramatic. That's the main premise of the story though. This film has a lot going on throughout it. I say that though in a way where I needed to first look at this film and take away the nostalgia. Take away the characters that we already know and see if the movie's story has this specific purpose to benefit the characters, or if it's a generic plot that if it was its own by itself IP would make no difference. Sadly, it really falls into that category of a setup that just slots these characters in and hopes that them being there is enough to carry it. With that all being said, we got a little bit to dive into here, so let's rev up that dusty JetX and take a ride down this pothole-filled memory lane.
Who the hell is Zoey?
It's called making an entrance, Logan.
As we continue on, we will be talking about specific things that happen in the movie, aka that means spoilers, just as a heads up. Before I even clicked play, I noticed that it was rated TVMA, which had me contemplate what that could even mean for a Zoey 101 sequel, but after a bit they changed it to TV-14, which helps me sleep better at night, as the film is extremely tame outside of some drinking and cursing. Now, the last thing I like doing is being overly negative. I like being sarcastic and making some jokes here and there, but my objective is never to just blindly hate or go into something looking to dislike it. I rather end up enjoying something than not. So after watching this with zero expectations of what it will deliver, putting aside my thoughts of the trailer, I really didn't find much enjoyment in the film. It is cool to get more supplemental moments to characters from a show I grew up with, sure, but a lot of the characters here don't get that. If anything, it's pretty surface level stuff that doesn't grow with them. The returning characters we get in the film are in job fields that can relate back to who they were and always have been, but it's barely touched on, with the most detail coming from Stacy's character, who is now a podcaster who never stops talking about her podcast. It's one of those podcasts where she talks about real life murder mysteries, and her husband Mark acts as her field reporter and helps produce the podcast. In fact, his character has maybe the most underlying details of where he's at, as we see him constantly be treated by Stacy as someone who just works for the podcast rather than her husband, as he has some internal feelings possibly left for Quinn, as back in the original show he dated her before Quinn got with Logan. At one point towards the end, he may have the one time in the film that I laughed, when he is speaking with Logan and mentions it being like him having sloppy seconds, as his character and Stacy definitely have some relationship issues that they need to discuss. But for a movie called Zoey 102, Zoey is the least interesting character here. The plot bringing her back and forth between the working world and her friend's wedding is not as interesting as the movie would try and make you believe it is. It just adds on to Zoey here being a distant friend and not giving too much of an effort to be in their lives. That's really the through line here, but it's played and wrapped up in a way that doesn't really allude to her giving more of an effort once the film ends. Maybe aside from one specific character, but we'll get to that. And with all of the problems that the film tries to highlight about the entertainment industry, especially with how she's treated by her boss, who specifically gives no respect to women, only ends up with all of the mistakes that she's made with her responsibilities, leading to her unknowingly boosting the ratings of the reality show, as she was fired before the ratings came in and then offered a better position after they came in, as she finds her own self-worth in the space and declines it, until she gets offered higher pay and a bunch of her asks being granted, and proceeding to then take the job. I feel that the way the film represents this though is once again surface level, not giving further commentary about her in this field. The film felt like it wanted to say something, but all it said was stuff that we already know and see about the entertainment industry. Sure, she gets the win in the end, but it's through her just accepting things the way they are for the gig that she is working, in favor of pushing aside how she really feels about it. Chase in the film is fun and had a few standout moments, like seeing Zoey again for the first time in a long time and walking into a pool, having a karaoke battle with Zoey's fake boyfriend and then avoiding a pole at the end before he dances with Zoey. Their whole setup together starts off awkward, and Chase is pretty cold to her based on the whole Hawaii thing, which we learn was them dating at one point, but when they were in Hawaii, she up and leaves, ghosting him for many weeks from there. They only come back together when Zoey forgot to pick up the wedding rings, and the smart car that she took from the reality show set hits Chase in the face and traps him inside with her as it drives to the jewelry store, with the car ride there being mostly silent and awkward, and things only change when we get this really weird scene involving the jewelry store employees forcing them to have this VIP experience there, and discussing how they met as they go into their whole friendship and relationship relationship and how a lot of it's been played out throughout the years, and then being forced to kiss each other before they can grab the rings and go. From there, they're able to speak in the car ride back, where it leads to them kissing, not forced this time, as then the electric car runs out of battery and forces them to walk a few miles back to the wedding venue. At first, their rekindled kiss feels weird since Chase doesn't know that her boyfriend is just an actor, and Zoey doesn't know until closer to the end of the movie that Chase's girlfriend and him broke up a couple weeks ago, and she only came to the wedding not wanting Chase to go alone. And also, the wedding is a complete disaster because, well, so many reasons. First, Quinn has never really wanted a big and flashy wedding, and is only doing this for Logan, who gets more worried and concerned for making the wedding this grand spectacle than he does for his bride-to-be. So with Zoey being preoccupied during the ceremony, still trying to work in secret, getting outed for it and upsetting Quinn, as Zoey is supposed to be her best friend, her maid of honor, and rather than communicate with her, she's made the wedding experience worse, as well as Stacy and Mark think that Zoey's boyfriend is acting odd and mistake him for the Malibu murderer and hijack the wedding to try and expose him for that, with him denying it of course, and confessing to being weird because he's acting as Zoey's boyfriend. And mixing into that more of all the stress that's on Logan's obsession with the wedding here, all leave Quinn at a boiling point telling Logan that, as she then calls off the wedding and leaves.
Just a little less creepy next time, okay?
Door open.
So with everything left a disaster, Zoey and Chase sit together at the beach as they wish they could go back to the simpler days of PCA. The film also established earlier that PCA closed down in 2009 for poor education standards, and it wasn't an accredited school, as well as after an investigation into it all, the dean was taking the tuition money that's used to get into the school and using it to gamble. So Zoey gets the idea in the end to bring everyone to the now abandoned PCA, clean up the courtyard, and set up a more personal and intimate wedding with everyone's help, as Logan apologizes to Quinn and fixes things, bringing her there as they officially now get married, having one last PCA moment together to remember. Zoey and Chase become an item as they slow dance and confess their love before they all party the night away from there. And of course, Zoey's the one to catch the bouquet. My personal 2 moments of fun in the film come from these party sequences, with the karaoke part from earlier in the film being a lot of fun, and them all drinking, dancing, and being together in the end at PCA. But the rest of the film spends too much time focusing on a generic plot that doesn't really have satisfying conclusions, specifically on Zoey's job side. I much rather have focused on something that elevates these characters, where they are at in life and their specific conflicts, with all of the fat cut from the film, the things that don't need to be here. I know school reunions can feel a bit played out, but why not a story of PCA being closed down and them all coming together after being estranged from each other, wanting to go to PCA and give themselves a true reunion that they couldn't have, keeping the plot focus on them and their relationships with one another. Generic as that may be, at least it would service the characters better and give us more time to flesh them out in the current day. Yeah, it's cool to see Michael, Logan, Mark, Chase, Stacy, Quinn, but we spend too much time on Zoey's story that it feels like there's so much left to learn about the supporting cast, as in the original show, while still being called Zoey 101, we had so much time to focus on the rest of the friend group. It wasn't just Zoey's story, it was her being a vessel into the landscape of PCA for us to care about everyone. And again, with Zoey in the movie, at least to me, having a pretty uninteresting storyline for her work, and Jamie not delivering her lines too particularly well here, we end up with a sequel that feels like it doesn't understand the show that came before, which as a fan of the original show does suck to see. Of course I wanted something good out of this. I wish I could be saying a lot of the opposite here, but this didn't feel made because they had a good idea and wanted to have fun bringing these characters back, but more so in a way to bank on your nostalgia to give it a watch, regardless if it respects your time for doing so or not. This, mixed with how the other time Jamie put together an unofficial music video years ago, just leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth about it all. I also really don't like the purposeful erasure of Nicole's character, which of course Alexa Nicholas, who played her, wasn't going to be in the film for a bunch of reasons that has been brought to light about her experiences working on the show and why she wasn't on the show after the 2nd season. But when the movie goes out of its way to explain where characters like Dustin is at in his life and make verbal mention of other characters not in the movie like Lola and even Dana, which the actress had her own behind the scenes stuff happen for where she didn't come back after season 1. It all just feels icky and purposeful. I shouldn't be ending the film with the most exciting part being that we get to see a JetX on the PCA campus and I'm pointing at the screen like Leonardo DiCaprio and freaking out like it's another MCU cameo. And the whole Malibu murderer thing turns into the stinger of the film, with a scene that plays after the Zoey 101 title card pops up at the very end. As Stacy and Mark are leaving the wedding party and notice Zoey's fake boyfriend by himself next to his car, as they apologize for accusing him, and he says it's no big deal before they drive off, with it cutting to an unknown body in a zipped up bag in his trunk before he closes it, meaning he was the Malibu murderer all along. And that's how we close out the Zoey 102 movie. I wish things were different. I wish this film went in so many other directions than it did, but in my personal opinion, it misses the mark, more than Mark misses being with Quinn. But what I am pissed off the most about is that at no point do we get any reason that this film was called Zoey 102 other than it being a sequel to Zoey 101. Not even just being the address of her house or frickin' anything. I'll take anything.
Oh, yeah, it is her house address. That's why the movie is called Zoey 102.
Well, you know what? I'll give the 102 a better purpose. I'll split down the middle of 1 and 2 and rate the film 1.5 stars on my Letterboxd account. Finally, I feel content. But those are just my feelings on the film as a fan of the original movie. I would love to hear yours as well. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Tell me how you're feeling about Zoey 102 in the comments below. And I thank you all for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll be back with another video soon. But until then, later.